Ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the What You Don't Hear podcast. This is a 15-minute Friday where myself and a returning guest, we sit down one more time, but this time we're talking about a specific topic or subject with the goal and the hope of sending you into your weekend or your upcoming week with some maybe positive, actionable, thought-provoking advice and opinion. He's back on the show. You're back for more. Josh Emerick, welcome to the show.
Hey there.
We don't have to bring that back. And also, anybody who's seeing you on the show, maybe for the first time, has no idea why you just did that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, see, continuity.
Hey, they're super fans at this point.
You know what I forgot for a 15-minute Friday? I'm gonna bestow the timer upon your
I don't even
phone.
know. Is it clock?
Yeah, you got it. It's in your. There we go. I got this. Listen, I'm a professional.
Glad I came to this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Glad you have your phone. This is actually all I needed you for. I'm going to take this one.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to talk the most. And I just got this one. And what I'm going to talk about by myself completely is we're going to share one quality that holds us back, that we are, of course, actively working on figuring out. Because, of course, I would say if we're identifying them, that means that we're probably doing the work to maintain them, to work past them a little bit. So, yeah, the theme of this episode is sharing a quality that we feel holds us back, and why it holds us back, and more so the work that we are putting in to get past that. I actually did one of these 15-minute Fridays with past guest Nate Winklemus. So we did one of these probably 2 years ago or so at this point. And truthfully, I have no idea what I shared back on that. I might have to go check that one out and see if I worked past that quality that I felt was holding me back. So, but I don't think it's what I'm sharing today. But first, I want to dig into what you're sharing. So when I ask you the question, hey, what's a quality that you feel holds you back? What comes to mind?
I did a little bit of prep on this, and I thought about this a little bit. And, there's so many things. And I think whether you're calling it self-improvement, whether you're just growing as a human, you have so many areas you want to work on. But the one area that I feel like always comes up for me is empathy, putting myself in other people's shoes. And early on, this was a huge hurdle for me. But even to this day, this is a new hurdle. It just has different consequences. When I worked at Lowe's, I think about empathy, and so often I would worry that who I was talking to didn't know what I know or understand. So sometimes I would overeducate. Other times I would really feel the pressure of people not having the money to be able to afford something. So for me, when I was starting to combat that early on in my career, it was very much like, how do I make people feel more comfortable and like see the value in me? So it's like that over care, it can be good and bad. In many ways, that ability to educate became really valuable as I started to move into video production and doing things like that, where I'm like, okay, I can educate people all day long. But it then boiled up in a totally different way where I think a lot of people in creative services can relate to giving too big of a discount or giving things away for free just because you want an opportunity. So this empathy muscle, like, it sounds like a good, bad quality to have. And it can be really great for solving problems, which is what I'm finding in this day and age. But at the same time, it can create a lot of instances where we almost over-project what someone else is in, and we devalue ourselves in the process, which is what I found I was doing all the time was, I'm putting myself too much in people's shoes. And in the process, I'm not educating them on my value. I'm not educating them on what it really costs to do this. And I'm also not really thinking about anything other than opportunity cost. How do I just increase my odds? And there's value in that. But at the same time, can you sustain that? And how long can you sustain that? And at one point in time, it's like, I'm near poverty. I can think about the first year, of running my business. It's like I pay myself $1,600 for doing 10 months worth of work. That's where empathy gets you in trouble, because I was just so excited about running my business that I was like, you know what? All I got to do is this. Still freelancing on the side. I still have, income coming in different ways. Yeah. But I was doing a huge disservice, and I was also creating a future problem for myself, because eventually I'm going to have to figure out how to value myself, how to actually build for that. Mm-hmm. And then what are people going to think when I'm inconsistent in that? So empathy is the thing that I feel is.
So what was, before we dig into more, do you want me to share mine?
I kind of do.
Before
we dig in more mine.
Okay. Mine is learning to detach my ego when asking for help. So what I mean by that is, and I know more than maybe anybody, you will understand what I mean when I say this, is like, I have a tendency to over-explain things. And I don't know where this comes from, But I do think it sometimes gets in the way of things because it's not just, oh, I love to tell stories and I really love to, I mean, you've learned at this point, you can't ask me what a movie was like without me being like, can I just tell you the entire script right now? Because I love doing that. But that goes into many forms. I love over-explaining anything at any time. So when I'm asking somebody for help, or I'm trying to get to ask to somebody for help of like, hey, can you connect me with whatever it is? Or, hey, would you mind helping me with this goal that I have or whatever? It's not so much the idea of, oh, I don't want to ask them for help. I can do it myself. It's more so I go into things with this weird mentality of I worry so much about making sure the other person understands what I'm asking them just as much as I do. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
So like that's why I over-explain things, whether it's you, whether it's anybody, because I want you to be as close to the exact same frame of mind that I'm in. So that way, when we're looking for a solution, we're looking at it from like similar places. It's still your perspective and my perspective. We're still looking at that different, but we're on the same playing field, right? So I feel like that to me slows me down so often of detaching that part of me where I'm like, well, like that's the ego part. Well, I understand it this way and they probably don't. So I probably can't ask them for that help. Or I probably can't, like even now, like I try to expedite when I'm asking you for your opinion on something is like, I'll try and just speed through the like, hey, I don't need like us to talk about like the ideas of what this could be. All I'm looking for you is your opinion on what this is. Because I've already went through the steps of, do I like it like this? No, this is the version that I like and that I want. What do you as an outsider think of this? And then give me any opinions or ideas based off of that.
Yeah.
So like that's something I'm always trying to get better at that I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to completely detach from because I do talk so much. I do over-explain so much. But I've identified it as this like weird little bit of ego attaching to that ability to ask for help. Again, not because I don't want to ask for the help and I think I'm better, but because I'm already seeing the thing in my mind a certain way. And I, for some reason, try so hard to make sure that other people see it that way. So then almost for the sake of progress, so that way we can just get to the point quicker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like in a weird way, that's still my ego talking of like, well, I see it like this. I just need you to understand it the same way. So then we can move on.
You know what's really interesting about that to me is in creative services, what you're really doing right there is you're making the feedback. If you're sending over design or anything like that, you're giving them like detailed feedback. Like I don't need feedback on this, or this, but I'm like, here's really where I need that. So that can be super effective in getting creative work done and shipping work, whatever you want to kind of call that. And I think that's a superpower in that instance. Mm-hmm. But in living Ross's life and getting things resolved from people, I think being able to ask the permission for, I have a perspective on this, but I'd really love to have your perspective on this, even if it challenges mine, could be a powerful mental shift on that. Because I'm guilty of that in many ways too, where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to bother anyone with this. I feel like I have to figure this out for myself, and there's not a good solution for that. And it's like, to me, I think so much ingrained in experience through our process, through creative services, we're probably, how do we make this as easy as possible? How do we make this as convenient as possible for our clients? How do we make that experience so fun and so enjoyable? Because I don't want to make this hard for them. But in the same instance, when you take that mentality over into your personal life, when you could use support, mentorship, help, you don't have that because you've worked so hard to make everyone else's life inconvenient. Yeah, call it ego. That might be part of it. But I also think there's a part of it is like just the caring of like, I don't want to inconvenience you. What makes it as easy for you to help me right now instead of just being like, I just need your help.
And that's exactly it. Again, it's not the part of like, well, I already know and you don't, blah, blah, blah. Like, clearly I'm coming to somebody for help with something. I want their advice. I want their opinion. I want their whatever. But it's that part of like, how do I explain that I've already done the work to hopefully make you helping me easier on you, but that's also not what this is about. Again, that's why I feel like it gets in my way, because it's doing that process that you were kind of just explaining of like, oh yeah, like I'm coming to somebody being like, all right, asking for help already feels like you're burdening somebody, even though that's not usually the case. People are usually way more willing to help than what we think. Have learned that over years and years. Even though I'm sitting here saying it's a quality that holds me back, anytime I have asked for help, I usually get the help that I need, and it wasn't that bad anyway, learning to ask more questions and more favors. But I do look at it from that standpoint where I'm like, oh man, like now what am I asking of them? Like I love helping other people so much that now when I need somebody to help me, I want to still make it as convenient as possible for them to help me, even though it might not be inconveniencing them. What I'm asking somebody might, for them, be like, oh, dude, absolutely. But for me, I'm like, all right, did I lay out a 10-step plan of how they could best help me, but so that way it's not harder for them, so that it creates that weird
You know what's funny, though, is you're kind of robbing them of a gift. Think about, in our situation, we help people in a lot of different ways, not to toot our own horn, but like so often, like whether it's you, separately, me separately, or us together, so often it's like, wow, that was so helpful. Thank you for walking me through. And it's like they feel like they got this great thing. And I'm very quick to remind them, and I know you are too, is like, no, I actually had a lot of fun like talking you through that. Like,
we love
pick my brain, I love to talk about this stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes when we're asking for that help for ourselves, the best thing is to just be like, I'm just up against the wall. Maybe you have the time for this, maybe you don't, but if you do, I would love to hear your perspective on this. Because I know so often, we will that perspective on whether they want to hear it or not. And oftentimes I feel like you don't want to hear this. And the common thing is like, wow, that was really helpful. I hadn't thought about things that way. I'm not saying I'm going to go do it your way, but wow, thank you for that. Thank you for that gift. And that gift feels good both ways.
Yeah, it's back to the earlier point. Like people like helping people more than what we may even talk about or address, because you're not also looking for the opportunity every single day necessarily of like, let me help you. It's like you are kind of gifted those opportunities. So like, oh man, I got to help somebody today. I mean, you and I have, we tell each other all the time where we're like, I got to have the coolest conversation with so-and-so today. And man, they presented me with this problem and I didn't have the perfect answer, but I was able to help in some way. So yes, it goes without saying, both you and I love doing that. And I do think other people, it makes them feel good to be able to help somebody. So yeah, asking for help more and realizing that it is more possible to get that help more than it is burdening somebody. Your empathy part of things. What was like, let's walk through some identifiers. We've only got a couple minutes left here. Let's walk through like some identifiers and what are actions you have taken to begin trying to balance that empathy method a little bit more.
Yeah, I think empathy is such, everyone can relate to that. I don't know very many people that aren't empathetic. And if you aren't, then this isn't the episode for you. But I think a lot of people struggle with that. So for me, a book that really enlightened me, that really kind of opened up my mind to like both my wins and my losses in my career, was Adam Grant's book, Give and Take. And he lays out this idea of givers, takers, and matchers. And when I look at our career in bands, when we wanted to work with bands, like we were so overzealous and we could see the potential infinitely for people. Now that we've moved into businesses and commercial, same thing. I'm like, why aren't you marketing yourself this way? Like there's so much more we could do. And even for ourselves, I think a lot of times that's the case. So what is that? It's like you're almost putting yourself in their shoes in such a way that you're like, wow, if I was in your shoes, I would do this, 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 and this. Now that I'm moving into coaching, it's the same thing. It has these byproducts that are both good and bad. And in Adam Grant's book, he talks about the value in matching sometimes. And matchers a lot of times are like, okay, it's 1 for 1. You did this, I do that. I don't necessarily look at it that way. The transformative piece for me was sometimes if someone's not as excited about a project, but there's still an opportunity there to grow and get them excited over time, the best thing you can do is match their energy, match their excitement. Execute in that way so that it's safe for you and you're not overperforming, under-delivering. And then you have this resentment that you created yourself. That was the case for me a lot of times. And additionally, he kind of lays out this like difference. I don't know what the terminology is, but like kind of an aimless giver versus a direction-oriented giver. I think he calls them otherish givers. And this was the key thing, is like when you're just selflessly giving, you're just giving to give because you think it's good, it's the right thing to do. I need to have empathy and I need to care. That's when it gets dangerous. And I look back on my career where I'm discounting things just because I'm excited about the project. That's shooting myself in the foot every single time. Mm-hmm. When I started with coaching, it's like I'm giving all this time away for free just because I need to prove to this. There's some value in that, but a lot of it was forcing me to not be focused in how do I best coach you? How do I best support you in video? How do I best support you as the client? So this direction, being an otherish giver, is having goals in mind, having some purpose in your career. Like today, Our businesses are relationship focused. We care so much about the experience, and we want to create confidence in people one way or another. Video production or coaching, those are all the same things, and I have direction now. So when I'm helping someone, that's the objectives in mind. And then when I'm doing like a 5-minute favor or I'm thinking of someone, I can use that empathy card to become a superpower instead of a super hurdle in my career. So, it's looking at everything as like, you could look at something as a negative in your life, or you could look at it as a positive, and that positive thing can become negative. It's really on balancing that and making sure we're massaging those things, not just using our skills, but developing them, seeing them as true tools in our tool belt, and then getting them out and sharpening them when they need to be sharpened.
Yep. Cool. We nailed that. We are just hitting the. It's like we've done a lot of these or something, right?
Yeah.
So I love all of that, and as we kind of like wrap things up here, like that's sort of my thing. Is like I'd almost like for us to give advice that we would tell ourselves if we were asking these questions, right? So this is almost so like, yes, this advice goes, of course, to the listeners and the viewers at home and all that sort of stuff who might feel similar things that we're feeling. But I want us to end this advice in this episode a little bit differently. I want us to audibly say out loud something that we need to hear. And I think my thing would be that reminder of, honestly, you kind of said it earlier, is everybody likes helping probably more than what we assume. And that I don't always need to assume that I have to do all this prep work to take to somebody. I'm trying to help them so much and effectively draining myself more. So then by the time I get to even asking them for help, I'm so drained because I'm trying to set them up perfectly, but I need their help at the same time, right? And so in a way that can also get in the way of I'm almost projecting how I want helped onto them, expecting those results back when I need to just be, if I'm going to somebody for help, it needs to be, hey, this is the information I need from you in this aspect, whatever it may be, but I still need your help. Because I think sometimes it's easy for us to be like, we do kind of have that ability to help ourselves inside of us, and sometimes it is just getting that out via somebody else. And I think that that's also okay as well. Yeah. It doesn't have to be so much one or the other. What would you say?
I have years of data now. So, past me, I would say is like, start looking at the data that you have and start using that data to your advantage on the nerdier side of things. But on the just really holistic side of things, I think empathy needs to be directed in the right place. And where that's went with that data is in asking the right questions. A lot of times I'd hear, we're broke, we don't have a lot of money. And I would feel that, and I'd be like, oh, I need to care about how much money they have. Or, so-and-so got this done, and we want to have that same thing, and I care about that. Now my empathy is directed into relationship. That's what I would say to my past self is stop caring about their budget. Stop caring about the creativity. Oh, that sounds insane in a creative service field. Start caring about the person. What do they really want? This is now a process for us where I ask 90% about what are your long and short-term goals? What do you really care about? What fires you up? Because if I care about that, I understand them as a person. And the more I understand people for people, the better I actually solve problems, and I can use that empathy muscle to go in a direction that's actually valuable for me and for them.
Beautiful. Josh, where can people find you around the internet if they want to talk to you more about maybe sharing a quality that holds them back with this whole empathy thing or anything at all?
I'll just plug it on Instagram because that's where I'm most frequently active, and you can follow me at jmemerick. And I love chatting on the DMs. I set time aside once a week just to chat with creatives, professionals, whatever, to talk about life, to talk about business, whatever that is.
Beautiful. I equally love these types of conversations. I am now at rosstheisen on Instagram. And of course, follow the show at WYDH pod. This was another 15-Minute Friday. Josh, thank you so much.